ॐ वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतङ्गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति. Let us offer our salutations to Lord Krishna, the embodiment of bliss, who came to establish dharma and punish the wicked. Let us pray to him to lead us from unreal to real, to lead us from darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. We have been studying chapter 7, Bhagavad Gita, the yoga of knowledge and realization. Verse number 21, Yo yo yam yam tanum bhakta shraddhayarchitum tasya tasyachalam shraddham tameva vidadamyaham. Lord Krishna says, whatever may be the form a devotee seeks to worship, with faith in that form alone, by making his faith unwavering. Here Sri Krishna points out that all the divine forms are his own, and he authenticates anybody can worship any god or goddess. Only I will see how the devotion is steadfast and unwavering to the particular deity whom he or she is worshipping. So, Sri Krishna says, what is important is Shraddhaya Archatum Ichchati. Shraddhaya. If you are steadfast and dedicated, devoted, surely the divine form paves the way for you to realize the divine. So, we do not have to unnecessarily create conflict in the mind. Can I worship this god? Can I worship that god? Etc. Choose any god you want, any god or goddess on whom you have got faith, tremendous faith, Shraddha. Do it. So Sri Krishna also recommends that it can be done. Verse number 22, Sataya Shraddhaya Yuktaha Tasya Aradhanamihade Labate cha Tatakkaman Mayava Vihitanitan. Endowed with steady faith, he worships the deity and from it attains his desires, which are in reality granted by me alone. So, Lord Krishna says, he is the karma paladhata. So, he is giving whatever the rewards to be given for those devotees who worship gods with Shraddha, and those rewards to be granted, those desires to be fulfilled. Verse number 23, Antavattu palam tesham tadbhavatyalpamedasam devan devayajo yanti madbhakta yanti mamapi. But the fruit gained by those men of small intellect is temporary. Those worshippers of Devatas go to Devatas, but my devotee comes to me. Here Sri Krishna clearly points out his status. Many ordinary Devatas are there to fulfill the desires. People approach God with kamya karmas, they say, rituals they do. and I pray this God, you grant me this, etc. These benefits what they get or the rewards of fruits are temporary. For the worlds of the devatas they too are perishable. Devatas have gone to that status by the previous meritorious deeds done in the previous lives. So they were born as devatas. As soon as that merit is over, they are again coming to this earthly plane to continue their life. Kshine punyam matyalokam vishanti. So, the ordinary devatas who have risen to that status by their punya karmas, after the punya karma is exhausted, they come down on this earth. What he means to say is, even those abodes of the devatas are temporary. They are not eternal abode. Even Brahmaloka passes into pralaya. Even the position of Brahma is attained by most fantastic punya karmas. It's a position anybody can become. It is said, Sri Ramchandra blessed Anjaneya that you will be the next Brahma in the next creation. Like that in the Ramayana it is said. So they who enter the region of the devatas are sure to return to rebirth. They can't avoid taking birth again on this earth. But Jnanis, that is men of wisdom, being devoted to me, they come to me, says Lord Krishna. But there are not many such. One recalls the saying of Jesus, straight is the gate and narrow the path, and few there be that find it. Straight is the gate and narrow the path, and few there be that find it. The position of the ordinary devatas itself is temporary. So how can their granting boons or the lokas where they live in, how can they be permanent? Those who worship the Paramatman, the Supreme Creator, get permanent results, whereas those who worship the ordinary devatas do not get. Those who worship the devatas go to their respective lokas, whereas those who worship Paramatman go to him alone. It is very clear that those who worship the eternal Paramatman attain eternal results. The efforts for doing worship, those same, serving ordinary devatas for getting temporary rewards, are considered men of dull wisdom, dull intellect. It is not here the intention to criticize the worship of the devatas, but to highlight the glory and importance of worshipping the Paramatma. The example is given. When a river and a canal are at equal distance, it is foolishness to resort to the canal instead of the river. In the same way, the efforts required for the worship of the Paramatman as well as the devatas, though are same, people instead of saving Paramatman, who is his own Atman, they seek ordinary devatas. Such people are said to be of dull intellect, mandabuddhi. By worshipping the devatas, they go to their heavenly abode. But as soon as their merit is over, they are sure to be born again. It is like this. Spending thousands of dollars, people go to luxurious resorts for spending their time in good rest. As soon as their money is exhausted, they will have to return to their own places. This is the position of the heavens. But those who see Paramatman, his own self, will attain the realization and will not return to this world of miseries and sufferings anymore. So, if you are seeking the stoppage of cycle of births and deaths, undoubtedly you must worship the Paramatman. By the realization of the Paramatman, one enjoys immense and eternal unparalleled happiness. Immense peace and bliss one experiences by realizing the Paramatman. Verse number 24. Avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyante mam abuddhaya param bhavam visaranto mamavyam anuttamam. Not knowing my immutable, unsurpassed supreme state, the ignorant think of me, the unmanifest, as coming into being. That is, Lord Krishna says, the ignorant people take me as an ordinary mortal, assuming embodied form from the unmanifested state, like all other men, being impelled by the force of past karma. This is due to their ignorance of my real nature. Hence they do not worship me, the one without a second. Here Lord Krishna very clearly states the concept of incarnation. Incarnations, they come in every age. Whenever the need is there, they do come. But they are coming not out of their result of the karma. The Supreme God incarnates not because of the karma. The karma theory applies only to the mortals. But the Supreme Paramatman incarnates himself out of his infinite compassion and love towards his created beings. He wants everything should go in order. If the order is breaking, then the Lord incarnates himself. Again, Swami Brahmanji, see, the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, all these disciples had realized the Paramatman. They had totally dedicated themselves to the service of their Guru, Sri Ramakrishna. And they were fully convinced that Sri Ramakrishna was none other than the Supreme Paramatma. Sri Ramakrishna also revealed that he who was Rama in Treta Yuga, Krishna in Dwapar Yuga, now Ramakrishna in this body. So, they have realized the impact of the concept of incarnation. So that incarnation concept, these disciples they describe by their own experience. Swami Brahmanji says, God here reference to Supreme God, not the ordinary devatas. Indra, Varuna, Agni, Vayu, not them. Supreme Godhead. He is infinite and formless, and yet is also with form. He incarnates himself as a man. Verily, it is beyond the power of the mind to understand the devious ways through which God leads man to himself. Incarnations come to help us, to raise us to higher levels of spirituality. That is their purpose. The doings of a divine incarnation are beyond the reach of the average intellect. How would you or the nation understand the way of divine action? When God embodies himself as man, he does so for no particular race or nation, but for the good and the whole world, good of the whole world. He incarnates. God exists eternally and from age to age embodies himself as man for the good of the world. That is because of his pure compassion. He is self-sufficient, pure, intelligent and free by nature. He does not have any purpose to serve in this world. Being complete in himself, he has nothing to attain or not to attain. When the world becomes burdened and there is prevalence of irreligion, adharma, the all-merciful Lord, by his own free will, incarnates himself as man to save the fallen and ameliorate the lot of the world. When God comes to this world as a man, then flows a current of spirituality. Many are blessed by getting the light of knowledge and many attain emancipation. There have always been various religious paths and countless scriptures and holy places in every country. In spite of that, why is there a decline in religion? The reason is because in course of time all those ideals become lost. Therefore, God incarnates himself so as to explain the subtleties of religion and to show the ideal. To the question, Swami Shivanandaji, another direct disciple, a question was asked, Maharaj, does an incarnation retain the fullest consciousness of his divinity all the time? And Shivanandaji says, well, he does to be sure. Look at Sri Krishna's life, for instance. From his very birthhood, he gave proofs of his divinity. But it is true that the outer expression of that divinity is not the same in all the incarnations, though they themselves have the fullest consciousness of their Godhood. It is only for the spiritual good of the world that their power is manifested. All that they do is out of mercy. For an avatar is not born as a result of karma. And how can he have any ignorance? It is the eternal Brahman in his fullness, the Lord of Maya, who descends with the help of Maya, and he returns to his own real state after the need of the age is fulfilled. All the spiritual practice that the avatar undertakes, all the hard austerities he undergoes, they are merely to set an example to the others, to hold an ideal before men. For he is God, he is infinity itself. Where can he have any finitude? As long as the avatars remain in their human bodies in this world, all their behaviors appear to conform to human norms. They are happy at things that make others happy and unhappy at those that make men unhappy. So much so, one comes to think that they do not retain their divine consciousness fully. Such activities, which ordinary people consider to be amazing and impossible, are quite as natural to the incarnations as inhalation and exhalation. They do not have to get all that as a result of long and strenuous practice. Supernatural things happen at their mere wish. How could the world understand his ways if he did not manifest himself as man among his devotees? He is born as man in order to redeem embodied beings, and even when he gives up the gross body, his power continues through his devotees. Just see how the divine power of Sri Ramakrishna is working even after his death, bringing hundreds of seekers here. How beautiful is the idea. The Lord himself is born as his devotee. Although he is omnipresent and infinite, he comes to us in a finite form for our good. Well, the doings of a divine incarnation are beyond the reach of average intellect. How can you understand the ways of divine action? When God embodies himself as a man, he does so for no particular race or nation, but for the good of the whole world. Jesus was neither a Jew nor a Gentile. He belonged to a category far above all these. He was an incarnation of the power of God. He was born as man in this world to save souls of men. Swami Premanandaji, another direct disciple, he said, while it is true that every divine incarnation and God-man embodied all the great ideals, yet each one emphasized one particular ideal. For instance, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the incarnation, was the very embodiment of love. He showed through his life how God should be loved, in what manner, with what intensity. Just as congealed water takes the form of ice, so congealed love took form of Sri Chaitanya. In the same way, Shankara was the embodiment of knowledge, Buddha, embodiment of renunciation, and Sri Krishna, the embodiment of selfless work. God is the God of all. His grace is upon all mankind. But the so-called devotees of God fail to understand the narrow bounds of hatred, jealousy, injury to others, and sectarian quarrels. God incarnates to break such barriers. But again, his followers create boundaries, claiming to preach new and marvelous ideas, proclaiming that such a liberal spirit has not existed before, condemning all other forms and sects of religion as narrow, superstitious and wrong, their alone being eternal, true and right. Like the people create conflicts on account of their ignorance. Somehow they become fanatics. Instead of becoming liberal-minded, they become conservatives. That's why Sri Ramakrishna has shown through his life. He came with a special purpose of integrating all the religions of the world. He practiced major religions and declared that all these paths are valid and lead to God. Just do practice and realize the God. Don't worry about claiming supremacy, etc. But people, on account of their immature mind, they think in a wrong way and commit wrong things. Just as the Lord has covered us with his Maya, he also graciously incarnates himself, undertakes spiritual practices in order to show how we are to rend asunder the Maya. He himself is also breaking the creations of Maya. A man once went to a garden with his several sons. The sons played about, some plucked flowers, some plucked green coconuts, but one went to angle in the tank. When it was evening, the man called all his sons. All came except the one who was fishing. The father sent for him again and again, but that fellow would not come. He was deeply absorbed in catching the fish. When it was quite dark, the father himself went, broke the fishing rod to pieces and dragged the boy to the carriage. Thus does the Lord come from time to time to shatter our playthings and drag us to him. That's it. He makes us to be spiritual. He makes us to turn towards God. That's the purpose of incarnation. Swami Turiyanandaji, another great disciple, he said, it is true, the Brahma Sutras have stipulated that prophets and incarnations cannot create or destroy the world. these functions belonging to God. But it is not that they lack the power to create, etc. They simply do not want to create. Possession of all powers is a sine qua non of the attainment of mukti. So the Ramakrishna-ji, another direct disciple, he said, you cannot worship God directly, for you can have no conception of Him except through such man-gods. If man-gods like Sri Ramakrishna did not take their birth here, who could know anything about God? They are Columbuses in the land of spirituality. The great incarnations like Christ, Krishna, Buddha were perfectly clear mirrors which gave us a perfect reflection. They did not bring us anything new. Truth is always existent. Christianity existed before Christ. Christ was only the mouthpiece. Mohammedanism existed before Muhammad. Muhammad was only the mouthpiece. Each one was a reflector of eternal truth. But one man catches the light from Christ, so he says, Christ has given me the truth. I belong to Christ, I am a Christian. Another sees the light through Muhammad and says, I am a Mohammedan. A third says, Buddha is truth, I belong to Buddha. So each great teacher has these followers who believe that the truth can come from him alone, but all teachers reflect the same truth. As the Rigveda says, Ekam Sat Bahuda Bhavanti, Sabji Prabhu Bahuda Vadanti. God is one, interpreted in many ways. To the question, God being infinite, why and how does He incarnate? The Swami says that man who has forgotten his infinite nature is finite. If it is thus possible for a man to be finite and infinite at the same time, how much more must it be possible for God to be so? An incarnation of God, of course, has body and mind like man, but he has the power to separate himself from body and mind easily. Sleep overpowers a man, but never an incarnation, who has mastery over his body, when awake over his mind, when dreaming over his consciousness, when asleep. A divine incarnation is complete master of all his being in waking, dream and sleep. From the highest being down to a blade of grass, all living organisms are a peculiar mixture of the finite and infinite. And incarnation also is no exception to the rule. But he only appears finite, though all the time infinite. Though he seems to be finite in power, he is actually omnipotent. But few can recognize the perfect and divine nature of incarnation. So all treat him as an ordinary being. Prophets and incarnations who have come and gone have shown us one thing, that we too can become heirs of knowledge and powers like themselves. If we only have the will, if we struggle walking the path taken by them, we too will reach that goal one day. If it were not so, the life of an avatar would have no meaning. So they lead us in a practical way through their own life so that we can follow the trail and reach the goal. The point is to realize the divine. That is the goal of our life, which we should not forget. Swami Akhandananda, another disciple, he said, is it easy to realize the self? Incarnations of God are God Himself. Yet they themselves have to struggle so much, not to speak of others. The divine incarnations express the ideas of worldly people by imposing their limitations upon themselves. The incarnation of God is a complete and perfect ideal. As much of it as you can comprehend is yours. An incarnation of God has certain characteristics. He is never affected by delusion or bereavement. He leads an ideal life. An incarnation of God has his own time and place. He comes when many people stricken with misery and piteously call on him day and night and pray with a simple heart, O Lord, never shall I do such things again. bring my mistakes to an end. I make an offering of all my karma to you. Appear before me. Or when at the time of decay of religion, spiritual men begin praying to God, O Lord, come down on earth and re-establish the reign of law. Then if the time is right, God incarnates as man to suffer the karma, results of good and bad actions of man. He has no karma of his own. Why then does he suffer so much from birth to death? Those who desire to love an incarnation of God must also be ready to suffer like him. So Vijnanji says, the Bible describes God in all his three forms, with attributes, without attributes, and as incarnate. Whenever God incarnates himself in human form, he reveals himself as such, as men would not understand him otherwise. What is wanted is faith, faith alone. But we must have that faith implanted in us if you want to see God, whereas divine incarnations already have it. That is the only difference. They have seen God, we too will certainly see him. Only it's a matter of time. We have seen in the life of Sri Ramakrishna how he, by undergoing intense austerity for 12 years, meditating in the Panchavati, finally he did realize the Divine Mother, Mother of the Universe. He was overwhelmed and he was very clear that he had realized the truth, and he was very happy to share the truth with those who seek him. When Narendranath wanted to seek God, Sri Ramakrishna tells him directly, yes, you can also seek God. But who weeps for God? People shed tears, jets of tears for worldly things. But who really prays to God to realize it? Anyway, by the grace of Sri Ramakrishna, Narendranath could realize, had the vision of the Divine Mother Kali. So, incarnates show us to believe the presence of God, to believe the existence of God, to believe that God is supreme, and to show that they come to us, to our level, to teach us by their life. But one has to follow certain disciplines and practice spiritual ideas sincerely. Surely everyone can realize the goal, even though it is difficult. So that's what Sri Krishna says here. That is the purpose of incarnation. Let us stop here. We shall continue next. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. May the Lord protect us, may He nourish us, may our knowledge be fruitful and enlightened, may we not hate each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.